time for Nico Kleynhans, exclusively on Breakfast with Friends.
And we say a very good morning to Mr. Nico Kleynhans. How are you doing, sir?
I'm doing well, thank you.
That's good. That's good. So your topic today is learning to adapt with wisdom, because adaptation is something we all need to do, but the wisdom part is something we don't always get right.
Yes. And I tend to talk about the past because if I talk about the present, then people say I'm criticizing. If I talk about the past, it's in the long ago and it's not criticizing anymore.
It's facts.
It's plain facts. I once spoke to an Anglican bishop, Bishop Zulu. And why I want to talk about him, because he had the distinction of being the first African bishop in that particular denomination.
Sure, amazing.
And I asked him why he became a Christian. And he was also the first Christian in his family, the first Christian in his clan. So it was a big step. His answer surprised me. He said it was because of a pair of trousers.
That is a very surprising answer.
You see, in that particular region, every young child, young black male, wore a thong made of animal hide. And he didn't like that. But he realized that if he became a Christian, the missionaries would give him a pair of trousers. And he wanted a pair of trousers. And so that was how he started his journey. And from that, he then got involved in the Christian faith. He went to seminary, he became a priest, and eventually the bishop.
Wow.
So
Amazing.
that was the start of a journey. I also spoke to a friend of mine who was also a South African, and she was called to the mission field. Now, she was always a bit crazy.
Okay.
Because not only did she go into the mission field, she felt God was calling her to Japan.
Wow, that is crazy.
Not only in the cities of Japan, but a rural village in Japan. And off she went, knowing that was what God had called her to do.
Very brave.
As there were no South Africans in Japan at that stage, she had to join an American association, and they then sent her as part of an American team. I asked her, what was the question that surprised her most? Well, she said, when I got to Japan, the American missionaries lived in a camp. Then they would go out to the villages, do their thing, and come back. I knew that was not what God had called me to do, so I moved into the village and lived as if I was a Japanese person.
Wow.
And I said, did you have to learn to speak Japanese? And she said, yes, I had to learn to speak Japanese. And it was funny because sometimes I made mistakes, but I learned to speak Japanese. I asked her, what was the question the Japanese asked you most often? And she said, in Japan, the Americans had a rule that women were not allowed to wear makeup of any kind. And she thought it was because of the geisha people who worked in the cities and often did things that were incompatible with the Christian faith.
Okay, yes.
And then at one of the conferences, when the American missionaries went home, they were told women could now begin to wear some makeup, provided they didn't have painted faces. And when they returned to Japan, the Japanese women noticed that they were now wearing makeup. And they were told God didn't approve of makeup. And so the question the woman asked her in private was, when did God change his mind?
Sure.
And why is it that we are not allowed to wear makeup when God told them they can?
Sure.
And that is when change now becomes confusing and a stumbling block, because it's not true that God changed his mind. It's true that the cultural norms have changed, and we didn't explain that properly. But there are times that change also affects our finances. Now, my dad, being Afrikaans and living in the era that he did, when he bought his home, he used an organization called Sambo to look after his finances. Now, Sambo was an organization only there for white Afrikaans people.
Sure.
If you were not that, you couldn't use them. And people with a lot of money would give Sambo money. And then if you were an Afrikaans-speaking person, white, you could go to Sambo and they would fund you to buy your house, to buy your car, whatever you wanted. And then they would charge you a bookkeeping fee.
Okay.
Now,
Interesting.
because I was a nerd, by the time I got to matric, I went to my dad and I said, the bookkeeping fee is above the law, what the law allows, and you need to go and complain and get the refund, because there was a court case. I knew that, and my dad had to go and get his refund. So he duly got his refund, and then he came back to me and said, I've decided to make a change. If I'm going to get ripped off, I may as well be ripped off by the English. So there is a branch of Barclays Bank. I'm going to move all my finances to Barclays Bank in the village.
Yeah.
And they've got a big branch. I will go there instead. And so my dad then began to make some changes. But now we go a next level. One of the things that bother me sometimes is often clients, listeners come to me and they say to me, I'm so proud of my investment. I've been putting money in for 10, 20, 30 years.
Yeah.
I've got 50,000, 100,000, 150,000.
Mm.
Then I ask a question. I say, of that 150,000, how much have you put in? And how much has the institution added as a reward for you saving? And they say, I have no idea.
Yo, that's a good question.
So I'm saying, well, then how do you know that you've got a good deal? Because you don't even know how much of that money came out of your pocket
Yeah.
and how much came out of their skill.
That's right, to grow your money.
Then the other thing that worries me a lot lately is people often come to me and say, I'm part of a family trust. My grandfather, my father died, and we're living off the proceeds of this trust. And then I ask a question. There have been changes in the law and the regulations. Has your attorney gone to check the original documents and made the necessary changes? And they say, what attorney?
Uh-oh.
So that means this whole trust is no longer within the law. And the minute there is a dispute, there are going to be some serious implications. SARS is going to get involved. The state is going to get involved. And you are going to pay penalties like you won't believe. So change is inevitable. But you do have to take some responsibility for protecting your rights. It's not impossible to do.
Yeah.
But the world is complicated. Get help from people who know what they're doing.
Mm.
Have a good day.
Nico, thank you so much. If you want to connect with Nico, maybe you've got a question that you'd like to ask, you can send an email to questions. That's the plural of questions. So questions@northwood.co.za. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.